Dave Taylor here, and a little while ago I had a chance to talk to Michael Brewer of Brewer and Shipley. You may know them from the song One Toke Over the Line, with his new documentary that's just been released on Vimeo On Demand called Brewer and Shipley, One Toke Over the Line, and Still Smoking. It was produced by Kathy Corley with Full Circle Productions. And I talked to Michael about a lot of things. One about the documentary, the song itself, and the history of the duo. So without further ado, Michael, how did this documentary come together?
A lady named Kathy Corley, who taught videography at Washington University in St. Louis for years ago, decided that, there's way more to Brewer and Shipley music than just One Toke Over the Line, and a lot of people don't know that. So she said, okay with you guys if I'd shoot a documentary about you? And we said, well, sure, why not? So when she's had the opportunity, she's worked on it for literally years, and it's finally finished, and it's coming out on Vimeo On Demand on 4/20. How appropriate is that? And yeah, Brewer and Shipley, One Toke Over the Line, 50 years and Still Smoking is the name of it. And I'm glad that you've seen it. I haven't. I've seen bits and pieces of it as she's worked on it, but I haven't seen the finished product, so I'm looking forward to dialing it up myself.
Oh, wow. There's a lot of backstory with you guys, which is great because a lot of people, like you said, are familiar with One Toke Over the Line, but you don't know how it all got started. You guys are from the Midwest. You go to California. How did you get a deal with A&M Records out there?
Well, I went to L.A. I was out there a couple of years before Tom came out, and actually I had a partner before Tom, and we had a band. Gosh, the Buffalo Springfield formed in the house next door to us.
Oh, wow.
And outside of the band, arguably, I'm the first person to hear For What It's Worth when Stephen Stills played it for me on my guitar in my living room. And in fact, they even got their name. We lived on a street called Fountain Avenue, and it was being widened at the time, and every night there'd be a large vehicle with a big roller on it for flattening out the hot asphalt parked in front of my house. And one night, the guy who actually owned the house next door, or not owned, but rented the house next door where the Buffalo Springfield were rehearsing and crashing, he and Neil Young came in and said, hey, man, look what we just stole off that thing in front of your house. They ripped off a big iron plaque off this machine that said Buffalo Springfield. They said, we're going to name the band after this. So anyway, to finish the question, our band, my partner, his name was Tom Maston, and he was a very talented guy, but he had demons, and he just couldn't handle the pressure. Just about the time we had things going our way, we got to deal with Columbia Records. Anyway, that band split up, and our guy at Columbia was leaving Columbia to go to a brand new label at the time, A&M Records, and he took me under his wing and signed me as a staff songwriter for one of their publishing companies. Then Tom came to L.A. and ended up moving into a house right around the corner from me, and we knew each other from the folk circuit. And so we started hanging out together and ended up writing songs together, and he became a staff songwriter for A&M as well. And we'd go into the studio to record demos on our songs. And it didn't take long for A&M and for us to realize that we kind of had our own thing going. We hadn't planned to be a duo. We were just friends writing songs together. We really liked the music we were writing. So that's how our first album, Down in L.A., came about on A&M Records. That's how we got together.
Yeah. And then, now, do you guys, because you guys was it a subsidiary of A&M for the later records and stuff? Because I know they hooked you up with a producer that kind of helped, for the later couple of albums, like Tarkio and all that. Was that...
Well, we changed labels. We did it the hard way. Just by the time we finished Down in L.A., it wasn't our cup of tea, as it says in the documentary. We just didn't like living out there. We were sick to death of the smog and, just everything. So we did it the hard way. We left, didn't really know where we were going. We ended up doing some shows in Wisconsin, college shows. And while we were doing that, we got a call from some friends in Kansas City. There was a club there called the Vanguard Coffee House that we both had played. And they were wanting to start a company, and they needed somebody with a record, and we just happened to have one. And they said, would you guys consider coming to Kansas City and help us start this company called Good Karma Productions? So we did, and we never left. We still live in Missouri, and everything turned out pretty good.
And the rest you could say is rock and roll history, right?
Yeah. And we changed labels, ended up signing with Buddha Records out of New York, and then we recorded 5 albums for them.
One thing that's mentioned in the documentary, and I wanted to dive deeper into this, is that you and your partner, you guys have always had a handshake deal. and is that just because of the friendship, the trust? Because obviously you guys have worked together most of your careers.
It's because it's just who we are. It's like we've never really been business, showbiz oriented guys. We just believe that a man is as good as his word, and we still do. So yeah, we've signed a lot of contracts. We've had managers and booking agents and record labels and a lot of contracts signed over the years. And what have they mattered? Because people end up breaking the deal anyway. So what's the point, of having contracts? But no, it was a handshake deal. In fact, that's why the company was named Good Karma Productions. We figured a man is only as good as his word.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing mentioned in the documentary, too, is that, you finally got royalties, from your first album, 50 years after it came out.
Yeah, well, we're used to getting money in the mail, if you will, from various, collection agencies and stuff for publishing. But we got one that we couldn't figure out. We're going, what the heck is this? We've never got one like this. And we looked into it, and it finally dawned on us. We got our very first, not publishing or songwriter royalty, record royalties from down in L.A. after all these years, which, by the way, is available now. You can buy it online, and it's been reissued and out of the UK, I believe. But anyway, yeah, we got our first record royalty, only one we've ever gotten to, by the way.
Of all the albums, really? Wow.
Yeah. Well, they cost a lot to make.
Yeah.
And you also get ripped off by the record label. We did 5 albums for Buddha Records, and then they went under, and filed bankruptcy and so forth and so on. Well, 2 years after the fact, our former manager with Good Karma decided to have their books audited, and found out that Tom and I both had at least $100,000 coming apiece that they'd stolen from us, but they no longer existed, and the CEO is dead, and so what do you do?
Wow. Oh, man.
So, yeah, we're glad to get the publishing royalties or songwriter royalties of those. We sold our entire catalog to Universal Music, decades ago.
Okay.
Because we figured, they can do a whole lot more, get it in movies and just whatever than we could. We didn't do anything with it. It just meant we owned the beans, all the beans. So we sold the catalog to them. We still get, they have the publishing, but we still have our writer's share. And, of course, One Toke is still played all around the world, and it's in movies and stuff. So who would have guessed for a song that we wrote literally just entertaining ourselves to make our friends laugh?
What is the one line? How many tokes is it that takes you over that line? Do we know that answer?
I don't know. One too many, I guess, when you realize, I shouldn't have had that last hit. I don't know. Actually, Tom and I, we're into triple digits now. We're way over One Toke Over the Line.
What do you guys? What you do address it? It's in the documentary too, and I've known this for years. That song was performed in Lawrence Welk. When did you know that song was performed in Lawrence Welk, and have you guys stopped laughing about it since?
Well, we were in London at the time, so we didn't see it. In fact, had my mom not seen it, we wouldn't have believed it. But my brother told me about it to begin with, because he was just walking past the room our mother was in when he was doing it, and he said that Mom was saying, "No, Lawrence, no, Lawrence." So anyway, 32 years later, we got a copy of it and finally got to see it and put it on YouTube for the world to see. And I think it's well over 1 million hits by now. But yeah, pretty weird. Lawrence Welk, referred to it as a modern-day spiritual. He certainly didn't have a clue. I think it was the Sweet Jesus line that probably...
Yeah. Do you think I think Dick Dale, and I forget the girl's name, but
Dale and Gale.
Yeah. Do you think they had any idea? I mean,
well, let me tell you a story. A few years ago, we were doing some shows in Pennsylvania, and much to our surprise, Gail Farrell and her husband flew all the way from L.A. just to come to our show and to meet us. And we talked about it a lot. They were very nice, and we asked her that question, did anybody have a clue? And she said, you have to wait for the book. I guess she's writing a book or something. I don't know. But I live in the Branson, Missouri area, and the Lennon sisters used to have a show, and the Lennon brothers, of course, they're full-grown adults and have been for years now, they grew up on the Lawrence Welk set because of their moms.
Yeah.
And I asked them one time years ago, did anybody have a clue? And they said, I guarantee you some of the guys in the band did, but nobody else did.
Oh, man. One thing that is featured in the documentary is, like in the 2000s. I mean, you've done a lot of solo albums. Is it harder or is it easier now to write like protest songs or songs about what's going on, like now or like in the late '60s? Because there's been some tough times and some controversial things been going on in the world, and like how do you address it now differently than like the late '60s?
Well, they just come to me. It's like I can't help it. Tom and I both come from the folk era, and of course there was a lot of protest music. I mean, gosh, all the way back to Woody Guthrie, and then of course Bob Dylan, Pete Seeger, lots of other people. And so we came from that era, and social commentary. I can't even call them protest songs. Just a reflection of the times. Nina Simone was quoted one time as saying it's an artist's duty to reflect the times in which they live. But it's just a reflection of the times, actually, and just like the songs Tom and I wrote on, like our Tarkio album, for instance, a lot of people could, we were just talking about what we were feeling and thinking, and so were a whole lot of other people our age. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, I still do. I try not to write those kind of songs anymore because of good grief. Everybody has their opinions. And I just, I'm sick of it because the world has just gotten crazier and crazier, especially with this pandemic that just won't go away.
Yeah.
And that's really put everything on the back burner for us, along with many, many other artists. And because of our age, we're in the high-risk category, so traveling is just out of the question. Doing shows is out of the question,
Yep.
And our fans are older, too, so they're not going to come, so there's no point. So we're just kind of on an undetermined hiatus.
Gotcha. I think a lot of bands are facing that now. A lot of them are, writing songs. That's what I'm hoping, like, when the pandemic ends, and it's like, here's, all these albums that we've been waiting for from artists, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
When you transitioned from, like, the coffee houses to the larger, did you guys do arenas, or, like when did that transition happen? Was it after One Toke came out?
No, it was actually when our second album, Weeds, came out. That was during when FM radio was brand new. It was called Underground Radio.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's how we ended up getting a record deal with Buddha Records, because Neil Bogart was the CEO. He was known as the Bubblegum King, because Buddha at the time had songs like Yummy, 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 I Got Love in My Tummy, stuff like that. So he was wanting FM album artists, is what he was looking for, and that would be us. We always have been. And so it was our Weeds album that actually started getting airplay for us, especially a song called Wichitaito, a peyote chant that we learned off the radio. It was by a guy, Jim Pepper, and his band was called Everything is Everything at the time, Native American gentleman. Anyway, that song ended up getting a lot of airplay for us on FM radio, when FM was underground radio and brand new, and the last thing you would hear would be somebody's hit single or something. They'd play whole albums even. When we were traveling the heartland playing colleges late at night, we'd be listening to this station out of Little Rock, Arkansas, called Beaker Street, hosted by a DJ named Clyde Clifford. That thing had a huge output, all over the country. And that's where we were hearing music that we were really liking, and that's where we heard Wichitaito and learned it off the radio. But anyway, then our next album was Tarkio, and that's when we wrote One Toke. And like I said, we wrote it just entertaining ourselves, really hadn't even thought about recording it. But the first time we played Carnegie Hall, we opened for Melanie and went over really well, got a few encores, and we basically ran out of songs, so we decided to play One Toke. And Neil Bogart was in the audience, and he came backstage and he said, "Oh man, you got to record that and add it to the album." So we did, and we finished the album, and then we went to the Keys to do some fishing. And we came back to find out that he'd released it as a single, and it was shooting up the charts, and we were in big trouble with the government, the Nixon administration. This is when he was had the FCC threatening radio stations with their licenses for playing so-called drug reference songs, but it was just ridiculous. Puff the Magic Dragon was on the list. Ludicrous. So anyway, thanks to a lot of brave radio station heads who decided to buck the system and just go ahead and play it anyway. And for people calling in wanting to hear it, it went on to be a top 10 hit for us and still played around the world to this day. It's in movies and stuff. Who would have guessed?
Yeah. Yeah, who would have thought all these years later? It's a 420, probably, common thing for a lot of radio stations. We play it on 420. And
it gets a lot of airplay on 420.
There you go. Well, it's a pleasure to talk with you. It's I've always kind of wanted to hear some of the stories and everything, and how you guys got put on the Agnew's bad list and Nixon's bad list. And
Yeah, we held that as a badge of honor, by the way. I still do.
You think there's like an FBI file on you, like there was like on John Lennon?
I have no idea. I guess we were dangerous guys and didn't even know it, apparently.
Yeah. Before I let you go, working with Dan Fogelberg, what was that experience like?
Well, it was great. He rest his soul. He was working. Tom and I took a hiatus starting in 1980 to about 85 or 6, I think. But because he wanted to get into other things, and we were just burnt. We'd been on the road forever. But I continued to do solo shows, and I was playing a little bar up in Colorado, Netherlands, and Dan lived not far from there at the time, and that's also where, the name of the studio just went out of my head. Anyway, there was a recording studio up there. A lot of people recorded that. And he was working on his Innocent Age album at the time. And he said he had a song that reminded him of Brewer and Shipley, and he was a fan of ours, called The Reach, a really pretty song about lobster fishing in Maine, and he asked if I'd sing a duet with him. So I did. It was just an honor and a pleasure. And then he was getting ready to, after the Innocent Age came out, he had like 5 #1 hits from it or something. First time he'd ever toured with a big band. And he was trying to decide if he wanted me to either be in the band on the tour or he was interested in producing me. So I'm glad he made the choice he did. He produced my very first solo LP on Warner Brothers Records. And unfortunately, by the time it was released, everything had changed. In fact, hundreds of radio stations stopped playing adult-oriented rock, and their logo became, "We're not playing what you see on MTV," when MTV was brand new.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a collector's item. A few people know it exists, but it was just a pleasure and an honor working with him. He was such a talented guy and a great guy. Yeah, rest his soul.
Yeah, he was a great musician. The coffee house thing is over. Which is a shame because that to me is always like just sounded so cool. I kind of missed that part of my. Born a little bit too late after that, but I would love to have seen that.
Well, you know what's taken the place of coffee houses? In-house concerts.
Yes.
Yeah, they've taken the place of coffee houses. I've played numerous in-house concerts, and it's the same thing, man. It's the same thing as what it was like, playing the folk circuit. It really is. Same kind of artists even, playing there. Oh, you asked earlier about the transition between coffee houses and large places. Yeah, we played everything from, I think I was starting to talk about our Weeds album,
yep.
This Airplay, when FM was happening. And we toured a lot opening for other artists. And it was just the two of us, just an acoustic duo. And actually we were pretty strong for just two guys with acoustic guitars. In fact, we were going over better than some of the people we were opening for. We got fired from a tour with America, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Because we were copping all the reviews. Oh, yeah, about 3 or 4 shows into the tour, every morning, the paper would come out, and we were getting the reviews, so they fired us.
Wow. Now, you guys in the studio usually, or the producers would add the band, right? Do you guys record, and then they would put the band on some of the songs afterwards? Or because you had like Jerry Garcia on the B-side?
It was kind of a combined effort. First of all, our first album down in L.A., was produced by a guy named Alan Stanton, but we weren't really hitting it off. He didn't really have the same concept of what we wanted, so he turned it over to a guy named Jerry Riopel, who did know what we wanted, and it was really good. He saved the album, and he took us up to Leon Russell's home studio because the Wrecking Crew played on that album.
Ah, yeah, that's right.
Including Leon, so we recorded half of the album at Leon's home studio. He played all the keyboard, so that's how that came about. But then our next one, when we changed labels, Weeds and Tarkio, were produced by Nick Gravenitis, and but of course we were working together. We already had our stuff together, like it says in the documentary. And Nick and the engineer are interviewed in that. So his job was to put together a band, and of course he's a blueser, so all these blues musicians from Chicago with a couple of folkies from the Midwest. We kind of created a hybrid sound with our Weeds and Tarkio album. But that's how those two came about. After that, we started producing ourselves, which may or may not have been a good idea. I don't know. But, so that's how that all happened.
Awesome. Man, it's good to hear those stories. I just wish to be a fly on the wall back in those days and just just to see everything going on.
Well, it was a time, but aren't they all?
Yes, exactly. Michael, thank you so much.
Well, it was my pleasure. Thank you, Dave, for taking your time to talk.
I was looking forward to this. Just when it came up, it's like, yeah, I'm doing this.
Well, I'm sure glad you did. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward. I got like about 30 minutes left of the documentary to finish, so that's going to be, finish that up tonight. It's weird to see something you haven't seen yet. I think you're going to love it.
Well, from what I have seen, I think Kathy's done a really good job. I wish her all the luck in the world with it.
Yeah, your tornado that you dealt with is mentioned in there, which is devastating. It's amazing you and your wife survived that. That is
crazy.
It
really is. Yeah, it was really scary. I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and my father dug the hole in our backyard built a tornado shelter, and us kids were taken out there in the middle of the night many a time, but tornado came really close lots of times, but never got us. But then I moved to Missouri, and one got me.
Yeah. Yeah, because the guitar is featured in there and everything.
Unbelievable.
When did that tornado happen? Because I'm trying to figure out, the timeline of,
2012.
Okay.
Yeah, leap day, February, an odd time of year, too.
Wow, yeah, because I was trying to figure out in the documentary, when the footage was being shot and everything else. I'm always trying to...
Yeah, that's when the house was being rebuilt, and it took 3 years to rebuild the house, too. It just took forever, various reasons.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was not a fun experience, and we're lucky to be here. Somebody was looking out after us.
Absolutely. All right, Michael, it's been a pleasure. You have a great day.
Good talking to you. It's been fun, too, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.